Hello, hello, hello! Today I am so excited to share with you some Weeping Watercolor Cards that I created using some sprays and stains. If you don't know already, this is Debbie with Debbie J's Crafting Corner, and I am always telling you guys that Halloween is the perfect time of year to grab some of your supplies that you haven't been giving enough love and just play. Well, today's card is a perfect example of why I keep saying this. So to start things off, I'm using the Boo die set from Pretty Pink Posh. Don't know how old it is, I just know it's been in my stash for a couple of years, and I'm die cutting the Boo out of some contact paper. I'm making a mask, and I like using contact paper because it's plastic and you can use it more than once. But when you're die cutting that, you do need to make sure that you're using a heavy duty shim. I'm using my metal shim that came with my Gemini Junior to be able to cut through the back layer of the plastic. It doesn't work just going into your magic mat like I did the first time, and I've got some indents on there. So I just needed to peel off the backing paper, and then I've got this perfect little Boo sentiment mask. I had also put some purple tape on the flat side, not the cutting side, of that die to be able to hold on to those little pieces of plastic that are my mat, and to help me get everything positioned right. I left everything in the die and it goes onto the card paste perfectly. I am putting this on some watercolor paper. The reason for that is that the technique we're going to be doing is the Weeping Watercolor technique. Now, I've seen this done before on Amy R's channel. I'm going to have a link to her video down below, and it turned out so awesome. But I'm doing something a little bit different by using a sentiment die instead of a circle for a moon. I've got it now in my splat box, and I'm just covering the thing with different colors of ink. You guys can see I'm kind of going sparingly on it because, yeah, it's messy, and I'm always afraid that I'm going to be putting too much down. I'm also using some of the mica sprays, which I'm having to shake up a lot off camera in order to get those, get all the mica to release on that. To be honest, on the first part, I don't think I really needed the mica because it winds up, I think that just doing this technique, either I did something wrong or I'm just not seeing the mica as much on there, but I think I know why, and you'll see that in a minute. So now I've got a ton of that. I've got a ton of ink down on there, but you can still see the Boo because it is beating up on that plastic. I think this is just too cool. Still adding a little bit more on, and now I'm going to need to start drying it. The one thing that took the absolute longest on these cards that I'm making is using that heat tool. Now I'm going down, because I didn't want to waste the ink that's sitting on top, going down with another piece of watercolor paper. And this is fine, we do this all the time. But look what happens when I pull it up. All of the colors blended together a bit more than what I wanted it to, so it's like, I'm not sure what I want to do with that. I am going to keep both pieces, and that second watercolor paper looks awesome. And putting down some more ink. I'm putting more ink down on top of what I just pulled off, so it's kind of, why did I pull it off to begin with? No worries on that though. It's going to turn out so cool. Now I'm pulling off that mask. So I'm just using some reverse tweezers to pull it off, and I'm using my pokey tool to lift it up enough so I don't get my fingers all in it and get too terribly inky. And then I'm going to start putting some water down. This is the magic. You put some water down using your distress sprayer, and look at all of those little veins that go in. Okay, let's do an instant replay and take a look at that again. I think that look is just so creepy. Absolutely love it. This is what I mean. Get out your stuff and play with it. I think what I'm going to be doing before too long is putting together a workshop, because I know I tell you guys to do it all the time. I show you what I'm doing, but you know, maybe we just need a little bit more inspiration and someone to kind of walk you through and stand there with you. So I'm going to do a virtual workshop before too long. I'm putting the masks back into the negative space from the mask so I can do a second card, because you can't do just one, right? putting those down, and I'm going to go through the same thing again, but this time try to use some of the knowledge from having done the first time. Did go ahead and wipe off the top of that. Probably wasn't necessary other than to get the adherence good down on the paper, and it doesn't matter that I smudged ink all over the place because I'm going back in and putting a lot more ink on top of it. So this time, instead of using a lot of the green and the blues, I'm using more of red and orange. I'm adding some purple and I'm adding a little blue as well. But I'm going in with a lot more ink right off the bat and not worrying too much about whether or not it's going to be too much ink, because it's not going to be. This is going to look fantastic. Gave it a little bit of time to dry, and I'm pulling off those masks without wiping them off and without trying to transfer it to anything else. Although now that the ink was dry on the card panel, I probably could have just done the transfer straight from that. Have to remember that for next time. Now I'm going back in and adding some water again, and take a look again at that awesome creepy look. I absolutely love this. Okay, I really don't want to waste all of that ink, so I thought of another way to do it. I'm taking those little masks and just putting them over on a paper towel. They're not exactly positioned right, but I don't care. I'm putting down some watercolor paper on top of them and lifting up that ink, and now I've got a sentiment for a third card. Okay, now I'm going to do a little heat embossing on black with some white embossing powder. I'm using the Boo stamp set from Pretty Pink Posh that comes along or associates with that die set that I was just using, and I'm stamping out on some black cardstock with some Hero Arts Unicorn White ink, and then I'm going to emboss on top of that with some white, just what white embossing powder I have in my stash. I'm using pigment ink because it holds onto the embossing powder, and I also use my anti-static tool to make sure that it doesn't stick everywhere that I don't want it. Next, I'm just going to cut out all of those little guys with the dies that are also in that die set, and I've now got a little hat, a little bat, and a little spider to go on my card along with the sentiment too. So I'm cutting out that sentiment strip just using my paper trimmer. I like to line up the words with the edge of the thumb guard so that I get a nice straight line about where I want it. And I did have to cut down that panel a bit too, because you know me, I like to have a little bit of a white edge, or in this case a black edge, around my card. Okay, just like I usually do, I'm adding some foam tape to the back so I can pop it up and give it a little bit of dimension on my card base, and then I'll add all those little goodies, those little bat and hat and spider to the front of the card along with the sentiment. That is going to look so cool. Okay, I lied. I decided to play some more, so I'm going to do a little bit of splatter on top of the Boo before I add those little critters on. Like the rest of us, I am new to using those mica stains, so I just put a little bit of it in a bowl. This is a little bowl that I just picked up at the Dollar Tree, and add a little water so I can more easily splatter it using a brush. Okay, while I'm playing, let me just chat with you a little bit more about some of the stuff that I have planned right now. Also, if you are watching this at this point, I know you like my video, so go ahead and give me a big thumbs up. And if you haven't already subscribed, hit that subscription button and the little bell so you get notified whenever I upload a new video. I'm planning on doing a workshop, a virtual workshop over the internet, doing possibly this card, possibly something else, and I need you guys to let me know what you are interested in. So I just created an indication of interest form, and you can find a link to that down below if you're interested in possibly doing one of these workshops with me. There's no cost at this point, but it'll give you a little bit more detail about where I am in the planning stage and what kind of information I want from you guys. So go ahead and open that up as soon as you get done with the video and take a look at that. I did add a little bit of gouache splatter, which I have never done. This is a new tube that I bought 2 years ago and never got around to using. So I did use some of that same technique, mixed it with some water in a little bowl and added a little bit of the splatter. There are some really small splatters of that, and that was fine. Now I'm mixing another of the splatters, another of the mica sprays, and using the technique that's usually done on that distress brush from Tim Holtz. I'm using it using this fan brush, and at this point I'm thinking, oh my god, did I just ruin my card? So I took the heat tool to it, dried it up, and look at that. It turned out fantastic. I am so happy with the way that this is going. And again, just like I told you before, take out your stuff and just play, experiment, see how things are going to react, because you never know. And as I've said so many times before, Halloween is the perfect time to do this experimentation and playing, because even if you mess up, like I did putting down too much ink on that splatter, it looks fine for a Halloween card and you can get away. It's a little bit more, I guess it's just a little bit more forgiving, so you can get away with some things. I'm adding some embellishments, some little jewels to the little ephemera pieces that I'm adding on, the little hat, and then eyes for the spider and eyes for the bat, and that finishes up this first card. For the second card, I'm basically doing the same thing because guess what? I was having too much fun playing. I trimmed down that background with the boo on there, and I'm doing a little bit more of that splatter with the distress sprays. So you don't have to spray the sprays. You can always just put a little bit of the ink down in a bowl and use it as is. Now you do want to make sure you shake it still well. If you take it from the tip on the end, on the end of the straw, I think it'll pick up more mica than if you just spray it, which is kind of interesting. And then I'm also trying again with the gouache, adding more gouache and then more water and trying to get a little bit more of that splatter. And I think it's turning out okay. This is one of those techniques that I'm going to have to practice with. And now I'm just going to add it to my card base just like I did the other one. And of course, well, I did it a little bit different this time. I decided I don't trust myself. I'm having too much fun and getting too messy that I may not put my panel on straight. So I put some art glitter glue on top of the foam so that we give it just a little bit of wiggle room just in case, and then I can get the edges of the card pretty much lined up perfect. Now I'm just adding on all of those goodies again. It's the same sentiment. I'm just changing the positioning just a little bit and adding those little guys on. Then I decided to grab out my black pen, just the one I normally write with, and add a little a little web for that little spider to hang on. Next, I'm adding a few more gems to this card too. And that's going to finish up this second card. Remember those two panels that were kind of oops panels? There's the one that I've got a lot of excess ink on there that I don't really want, and then I've got the one with that sentiment that I just transferred over. Well, I decided to try something that I haven't really done before, but I've seen it done so many times, and that was doing a partial die cut to get those letters cut out. Why do I need to do that? Well, the die is a whole word, and I didn't have those little letters lined up right. So the easiest way that I found out to do that is to put your plates together and then put the die where you want it with the end sticking out of it. I tried to do it with just moving the plates around, and it just was a little bit more difficult. The one on the center is really easy to do because then you've already got everything else cut out, and you can go ahead and just cut that one out on its own. Then I went ahead and cut out a bunch of black boo letters so that I could layer them up and add a little bit of dimension behind my colored, my ink colored ones. trimming down this last panel. What I had done on it after I had transferred all of that ink from the original, the first card panel, is I added a little water so it's got some drips on there, and I'm keeping some of that because I just thought that that looked kind of cool. Each of my letters has got 3 black letters glued behind it to give it dimension, and of course, as usual, I am adding some foam tape and some art glitter glue to the back of the main panel before putting it down onto my card base. For this one, I'm putting the sentiment strip down first near the bottom, and then I'm going to position my 3 letters. I'm going to have the center O kind of in the center and have the other 2 offset. So I'm going to glue that one down first and then position the other 2. Since the sentiment has a little dimension on it, where the others were flat, I'm also going to add a little foam tape behind each of my little critters to go on there too, so that they're popped up slightly and not too high. Kind of want them to be level with the sentiment if they're overlapping. So this is just so easy. Just cut off a small piece of foam tape to the shape and size that you need, and then put it on the part of the embellishment that is going to be hanging off. Like on this spider, I just cut up this little triangle piece, and I'm going to put it on the edge, and that edge is going to be hanging off of my O. Once I got done with all of that, this one was pretty much done. These cards just turned out fantastic. I'd love to know which one you like the best, so go ahead and leave me a comment down below. Again, if you haven't already liked this video, smash the like button, subscribe, do all the things, and I would love for you to let me know what you think about the possibility of doing a workshop making a card similar to this or something else. So go ahead and fill out that form and give me your thoughts on that too. As always, thank you so much for dropping in. Here's another Halloween video for you to enjoy and the playlist for my Halloween 2021 series. And as always, remember, if I can make it, you can too.